Alex Hanser here. It is the 6th of April in the year 2016. I'm grateful for a lot of things, and I'm certainly grateful that I'm not living in a major city. And I'm especially grateful that I'm not living in a major city, living in a vehicle, and dealing with all those people, dealing with all that gender warfare, dealing with all that have and have not energy. So for me, this whole thing has been worth it, and the experience keeps growing and growing. Now, there has been some setbacks with Costilla County's change to the land use code, and I have been in a state of movement as a result. Otherwise, I would have settled in Costilla County, or I would be parked somewhere in Costilla County. Someone wouldn't be afraid, to have me on their property where they have things going on if Costilla County wasn't cracking down wherever they see an RV. So times have changed, and now there's concern about HUD and the federal government, quote, outline living in an RV on a permanent residence basis. But keep in mind, that does not exactly mean that people are going to be pulled over and fined by police because they're living in their RVs. That's a different situation. And so for the person that's mobile in their RV, they're not going to be affected. But if they go forward with some of their changes and proposals, it will affect people in some situations, especially certain models of mobile homes or motor homes. I don't know. The whole proposal is a little complicated, but the fact of the matter is, this is actually listed as just an '84 Chevy on the title. So I'll be able to scoot by a few years, but it's not going to be without its expenses. And the harsh winters, the cold temperatures. And so who knows what the future holds. But the freedom that I experienced living in the RV is, even though it has its setbacks and it can be expensive, it's worth it, as opposed to basically being enslaved in an urban environment to a job that I don't like, tied to a lease, something to that effect, and chasing the wrong things and people in some cases in the society and world. Right now, I'm not chasing the wrong things. I'm chasing the right things. And certain things don't come easy. Now, maybe at some point I may have a home, a structure. I would like that. Because ultimately, there's a lot of stuff that I'd like to talk about in a studio that I have helped construct. It also occurred to me there's definitely room for improvement in the alternative media when it comes to like a network of individuals working together, pumping out independent content that no one else has. That is original content. That is, you could say, there's the raw content, and then there's people, the specialists that come in, the team, the editors, and they repackage that content. Put it at a certain length, and then boom, put it on a channel. And have people that know what they're doing with programming put out good content at the right times, at the right links, of the right quality, of a certain standard, of HD 1080. So, there's a lot of things that I thought about years ago that have been possible the last few years that still could be done. And so I haven't completely closed my mind to the idea of relocating to an area where there is a studio and there's people working around, and perhaps somebody could finance it. Somebody could pay for it if perhaps, a millionaire found this channel that want to finance it, or somebody want to finance it that doesn't have the money but has the physical space. A couple people working together can do a lot of things, can reach a lot of people. A few people can take other people's content and really make it shine in a way to where the content creator can only make it in the raw, and that's what it is. But it really needs to be, realigned, repackaged slightly, presented in a slightly different medium, something to that effect. So I'm always thinking about these things, but in the meantime, I stay younger in this situation where I'm in. Look how beautiful the sky is. Okay, so they're going to make living in an RV illegal. Well, you know what? I'm already on the run. Someone's going to come up to the RV and say, Alex, you literally have to sleep outside the RV. Now, the reason I also bring that up again is because there are people that say, oh, this is becoming illegal. And they just repeat that. And they get used to just saying things are illegal. And they don't even try to live free. I've talked about this being a reoccurring issue for years. And there's probably also a fair amount of people that just gave up on their dreams in Costilla County once the county started doing what it was doing. And there are some people that believe that that is not the way to go in this world and this day and age. Just give up on your dreams. To not even fight peacefully, that is, but some people believe in other ways. But to stand up and fight for your rights, to speak for your rights. And sometimes that is necessary to preserve our rights. To speak up for our rights, stand up for our rights, got to be present, got to be aware, got to be alert. So we should be alert about this federal ruling, what this means and how this ties in with people being pushed back into the cities and Agenda 21 and what's coming with, more land being conserved and being made in these wildlife areas, even Oregon. They talk about these ranchers that are going to be affected by this new conservationist zone. And I've talked about Burns, Oregon. And I believe that was set up by the government to entrap people. Doesn't take away from the issue that there is a gobbling up of land, and there are multiple ways they are trying to make the people dependent on the government. But that's why people should be cautious and not just get wrapped up into certain populist, highly publicized meetings, movements led by shady individuals. And that's the case with Burns, Oregon. So I don't want to take away from the issue that there is an issue with people being booted off the land. Not only a war on off-the-grid living, but an attack on landowners, large landowners, and not just ranchers. And we could see the foreign interests in land here in the United States. We could see what life in the city is doing to people most of all, and how alarming it is that we have a society, aspects of it, people in the society that think that it's sane, moral, and just, try to force people to live in urban environments. You look at what cities have become, and then you have people saying, no, you should live there. It's this whole, you should live in a concentration camp mentality. But let's not call it a concentration camp. And the other thing is they want people on welfare. Oh no, don't live in your vehicle on your own. Get on welfare. Sign up for this program. And they are directing people in that path. And they do encourage people to be on welfare. This economy is a ticking time bomb. There's a lot of people that aren't ready for it. There's a lot of people that aren't prepped for it, that actually could be preparing for it. A lot of it's psychology, though. Psychological preparedness, spiritual preparedness over physical. I'm not physically prepared with enough food to deal with a long-term situation. Because I believe that there's a few more years left before the situation gets more complicated than it is. But for right now, we are seeing the creeping death, if you will, the hammer on humanity with this HUD regulation. But at the same time, once people realize there's something wrong, instead of just going, oh my God, and feeling like a victim, people should really think tank as to what they're going to do for each other as the government does what it does. I live in a world where I've traveled to multiple BLM spots. Because like it or not, I'm a person with, not enough allies out there in the community to where, I can park and not be bothered at some place without some drama starting. And some people that I have visited, not all but some, they've been energy vampires and manipulators. And then other people are just afraid. Afraid that I'm going to want something. Maybe want something inside the house instead of just needing a place to park. I'm not complaining, but what I am saying is that BLM land, parking on BLM land, short term, does alleviate the stresses of parking in public spaces in the city, like at Walmarts, where I'm sensitive to noise and energies, and I very, very, very much am. and lights and people yelling and screaming and just people, bugging their eyes out. City life in general, I'm sensitive to it. So I appreciate BLM land spots where I can park and be somewhere where no one else is. And that's a very special thing. So even though the BLM is gobbling up land, and even though there's this proposal to ban RVs as a permanent dwelling, I'm not permanently dwelling in my RV at any spot. And I've adapted to living in public spaces to where, maybe I can't live in an RV in Costilla County or other counties without a septic, but I can still live, and I am still alive, and I am still creating media, and my spirits are not being crushed by this experience. And I feel now, more than ever, it's really important to document. With this proposal with HUD to further regulate tiny homes, and some are saying, it's about more regulation, which isn't good. It's not good. But it doesn't necessarily mean a ban. But it is more regulation. So the fact of the matter is, these things are happening. I will report on them, but I won't lose my mind reporting on them or say that, we're all going to end up in one big giant camp. But I will warn people, these are warning signs. This is more corruption. This is more of that tyrannical tiptoe that creeps up on people, the creeper, and people don't realize that they're being imprisoned until it's too late, and they're in a situation where they're in an RV, and they're no longer in a regular homey home. And there's a lot of people who are going to be in that situation in the next coming years. And some people know that, and they just don't want to deal with it while there's time. They're putting their time and energy into Trump or Sanders. Not so much Clinton that I can see, but a lot of Sanders and a lot of Trump. A lot of this Coca-Cola, Pepsi, left-right nonsense. It's troubling. People arguing, no, this person is a lesser of the evils. Like people that should know better, trying to repeat these lesser of two evils talking points. This person is the only candidate that insert your argument here under the dotted line. So you could say that I'm getting some practice. I'm getting some experience navigating what it's like a couple years now on the road, and realizing that a time is going to come where there's going to be more people in the situation, and it'll be more high profile to be an RV. I'd like to be upgraded to a better situation in the next couple of years. I'd like to be surprised by this universe. I'd like to be surprised by this universe. And I may not have much, but I have my content. And I know that there's a variety of stuff there in my content. And I feel like this is the time where my content should be propelling me. And it will. And it is. At the moment that I speak to you, the very things that I've put out there have actually embittered my life. They have brought good people into my life. They've brought interesting circumstances into my life. I talked about the negative stuff. Sometimes in this world, with so many threats and disasters, our sight can become a little convoluted, and we forget the light. And we forget all those beautiful people that we have met along the road. And I'm so much healthier breathing this air than breathing the air in Portland. Lately I've been thinking about Portland a lot, watching videos on YouTube and some cop watch videos and stuff at City Hall. Those people are sick. Not all of them, and I'm not being mean. I mean, they physically have this look about them that is not well. And it is something toxic. It is not just the energy, it's the environment. It's physically the environment in that region of North America. It's not just Fukushima, but it does include that. There's something going on over there that's affecting those people. And I warned those people for years and felt like I was considered the crazy man, the crazy horse Alex, talking about an upcoming invasion of the U.S. and how Portland would be affected, or, chaos in the streets, solar flares affecting the grid, no water, no food. You'd have cannibalism popping up in some pockets, as well as other Mad Max scenarios, like right there in Oregon. And now, with a booming population, the point of all that is that I feel like the universes work with me to save myself and allow me to escape Portland. Energetically, physically, financially, the means were there when I went from the tiny home on wheels, the homemade one, to upgrading to the RV. And here I am 1 year later, still in the RV, but everything has been a part of an overall success story of moving up. There's been bumps along the road. There's been hard times, times where I've been alone, times where I've been broke, where I've had to spend every dollar and dime just to get back on the road, but I keep going. Train kept rolling all night long, and nothing stops me. And that does make some people angry. That does bring the haters out that see me as an escaped slave that should be their slave or back in the system, back in the city, there to applaud if I'm showing some sort of pain on my YouTube channel. And that's where they come out the most. And they're there the least when I'm in a place of strength, I've also noticed. And that's very interesting. How even moments where I'm in a place of strength where I may not even be on YouTube for a few days, it's quiet. But I've seen that aspect of the law of attraction, or you can say law of magnetics. Where I'm vibrating at a certain level of pain, certain things will be popping up on the internet troll aspect of things, where it's as if people are becoming animated by an energy that knows I'm in pain. On the other side of the coin, when I'm in a period of feeling strong, and my energy field feeling strong like it is now, it's quiet. Those people are not popping up like little jack-in-the-boxes to punch my buttons. Ultimately, overall, if people were living healthy lifestyles and they were in their higher self and their consciousness was activated, I'm not saying everybody should live off the grid, but if people are more tapped in with nature and not just the cell phone madness and a lot of things that associate life with the city, and being more in tune with themselves and also their friendships with people being more meaningful and real and less superficial. Overall, the world would be a better place. And right now, I see the urban world as a world that is rewarding a lot of bad behavior and punishing some decent behavior. Seeing a lot of good men and women run over by the system itself and shoot up by the dogs of this world. This trying to attempt the movement of the people, it's a larger topic that we can't get into in this video, but it's beyond words. And the judgment about people from different places and trying to hurt people into certain directions, and even at the higher order or level, certain people living lives that some of us couldn't even imagine living, where you're in a war zone where the whole war is controlled to destabilize it and literally push people from one continent to another, creating resentment in that continent where the immigrants are being pushed. And people that even know that the government is playing a role in fermenting terror cells and ISIS, they will still be angry at those people anyways from those lands. Demonized as Muslims. All of them fear to be a potential threat in a day and age where people that are seeing their rights violated, in some cases, they will applaud when others have their rights violated. We see a world where people don't want to be judged, only to see people judge others. We see people demonized in the mainstream media and cry out about it, how they've been disrespected, how the reporters never got the story right, only to believe the reports that are coming out about other people around the world. America has its karma coming to it in some ways, in a lot of different ways. And aspects of that relate to Americans losing their freedom. I will not necessarily be numb to those losses of freedom that are coming. And at the same time, I will not necessarily be affected. And some could say that those that have become homeless, years before others that have become homeless, and they've learned to navigate around it, that they're in a better situation. With me, my life is creating content. And I don't see myself as just simply someone living in an RV, just surviving day after day. I'm creating content and trying to push my information forward, continue the dialogue on certain fronts, while also incorporating discussion and dialogue about living on the road. In a day and age where there's so much fear about the outsiders, fear of the outsiders and the homeless and the RV dwellers. And in some areas, the not fully white. In some areas, the non-Hispanic. We live in a world now of fear. Fear of the outsider, fear of the roaming nomad, fear of the conspiracy theorist, fear of the person that talks of God and the Creator outside of religion. I feel like I am overcoming various stereotypes in a single breath, if you will. Because there's several stereotypes people have tried to throw at me, or ways people have viewed me in some way. And in reality, there is purpose in overcoming such discrimination, overcoming such challenge, overcoming such bullshit, not being affected by it. Haters are going to hate, and understanding why haters hate the escaped slave, and how we can see this in all aspects of our culture. So, in a way, I'm honored. I can recall praying to the Great Spirit for protection multiple times, especially when I came to Costilla County for the first time in 2012, and I felt that strong connection to the Rio Grande River. And since that time, I have prayed again to the Great Spirit while looking at Blanca, looking at surrounding mountains, Ute Mountain. And I can feel that this is going to be a very safe place to a certain extent at some point in the future. And there's going to be some turbulent times and periods between now and then, potentially economically and other. But I feel no need to travel beyond this area, despite the challenges that I faced. And I'm willing to take the risk with what comes with staying inside the United States. Going to a spot or a place where I don't speak the language, where I don't know anyone, where my papers are not in order, where I don't have any money. Did I mention where I don't know anyone? Now, perhaps a situation could open up where a light will show me the way. And things will happen to get me out of the country. And nothing will stop me, if that's meant to be. But right now, I don't feel like I'm in a state where I need to be running anymore. Only sitting, watching, observing, reporting, feeling, listening, speaking, repeat. Mix up the deck. No, I don't feel like I'm supposed to continue traveling around the United States at this time. I am exactly where I need to be. Are you exactly where you need to be? And I'll tell you what, if everything was to blow up tomorrow, nuclear power plants were to go down, all hell breaking loose. There's still a concern with having enough food, but that's everywhere. Have enough food, have enough water, that's everywhere if you look at it. The principles of storing some water and storing some food and maybe stashing or burying it, that's everywhere too. The question is, do you feel safe everywhere? Do you feel that there is enough space between you and hundreds to thousands of people that don't have anything at all? Nothing whatsoever. And even though this area has its fair share of crime and theft and racial tension, there's no comparison Population-wise, there is no comparison between the Portland area and this area, between this area and other areas. And the very fact that they have made off-the-grid living illegal in some ways, it might not be a good thing, but they are preventing the population from reaching a certain amount, if you will, in this area. And so, I live in a world where it is not illegal yet for me to be breathing the air without having to pay some sort of a tax. It is not illegal for me to fall asleep in that vehicle, which is entitled not as an RV, but actually as a 1984 Chevy. Maybe that's going to be something, again, that's going to be a very positive thing later. I do not want to live in that forever, but I was able to manifest that in just the last year. And it really improved my life. And so now I'm thinking bigger. I'm thinking I want a studio. I want a home. I don't financially have the means for those things right now. Maybe an amazing job offer will come in. Maybe other means will come in or resources for me to enable me to live my dream. It may take time. But psychologically, I am in a space of creating my own reality within that which I can create. And that is a home for myself in the general area at some point in the near future, where I will accomplish this, and I will push my content forward, and it will grow. I mean, the content literally lives on its own. And the content finds people. People find the content. Synchronicity does the rest. And right now, the journey, though, happens to be still living in the RV during a time where off-the-grid living has become super, super controversial, coming to a place that actually happened to be ground zero for local government's war on off-the-grid living. There must be a reason why I was here to experience it and here to document it. And there's going to be more things, like I said, coming. Some of these things are also karma, or the effect of people asleep at the wheel. It's inevitable that things will reach a certain level. But we are still alive, and we made it this far. And I was not killed 10 years ago, like some people thought would happen. I never had to deal with police personally targeting me because of my show or who I was. If I got a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt, it was an accident. I've made it this far without a broken bone. I did my show for years speaking out against the war, with sometimes people looking at me weird at bars that I would go to at night. But still, nobody jumped me at night. I dealt with certain things, certain judgments, complications with roommate situations, women and jobs, but nothing really serious. I feel like I've been blessed to have lived at least, or nearly, a third of my life speaking to the best of my ability the truth, publicly. Prior to that, and throughout other times, I've always been seeking the truth. And to know the true light of the true Creator. To overcome the evils of this world and the unseen realms and beyond. To achieve a level of self-mastery and independence. And to truly create my reality where I can. And where I should. And each of us should be pondering how we should be fully present and aware in our lives and dictating how we live. So I live and continue to live as I've been allowed to live thus so far, despite the fear, despite the threats. So we can read headline after headline about our lives being regulated out of existence. But ultimately, they cannot take our spirits. No headline, no regulation can take our soul and imprison our soul. These physical attempts to manipulate and redirect our freedom and focus is there to affect our spirit and our soul. And so at the end of the day, which it is now literally at the end of the day, we have to realize that we have to keep our spirit strong. We have to nurture our spirit. There may be certain things that are good for us, that nurture our spirit, that they say they're going to regulate out of existence. Without a doubt, this is a very, very, very instrumental time in human history. Pivotal point. And we are experiencing that now with these types of headlines. So I'm going to wrap up these thoughts. Yeah, I have made it this far, and I will continue moving forward, despite people's assumptions as to how far I'll get. I'm going to continue moving forward. I'm going to continue speaking out about certain things that certain people in the cities and elsewhere, certain people in our society, people are afraid to speak about certain things, assuming that they would end up on a list. Some people don't go to certain areas because they'll assume they'll get killed by a racist redneck. They'll assume perhaps the blacks or the Hispanics will get them. You know, some people assume other things. Some people live with the fear of what somebody might think about them. So they censor what they say. What would she say? What would he say? And yet I live my life now, multiple years now into the situation, you know, throwing the hypothetical middle finger up to the world, not literally, figuratively, and going my own way. And, you know, really not being a pioneer in it, but being just the current manifestation of the philosopher that's gone his own way. In a day and age where I have a camera in my hand, where I can upload this onto the internet for free, where I can use the power of the sun to bring you this and the internet at a remote location where this was not done 20 years ago, not like this. I mean, things were written, there was some VHS stuff. You know, the 80s were more of an exciting time. Society was more exciting. Society and the world was less of a threatening place during the 70s and 80s. It was still growing, it was still booming. The music was great. The dating scene was far better, folks. And now we're in a different cycle. And it doesn't mean that the world is ending. And it doesn't mean that I'll never live in a city ever again in my future. It means that right now in 2016, in this cycle of humanity, this is a very, very beautiful time to be able to live in an RV and park somewhere and be left alone for a few days. And the few dollars I have for it to be able to propel my RV and, you know, not to be $4 a gallon, $5 a gallon, I'm at the right place at the right time. And despite the fact that a lot of people that have never lived off the grid or in freedom spend a lot of time focusing on the illegal aspects, I choose not to be focused on all these things that potentially could happen and to live my life as I can while I can. You know, despite the fact that I do talk about certain outcomes, you know, in certain secret societies and threats, I live in a day and age where I can be hunted down and killed. And I've already accepted that. Years ago, I have years ago accepted the fact that I can be hunted down and killed. And the fact of the matter is, I still am alive. And I'm not going to use the fact that I still am alive as more reason to fear the unknown. I'm now 10 years, 11 years beyond a mark where people said they're going to come and get you for what you're saying about Bush, who isn't even in office anymore. And I overcame those fears, moved on to talk about other things, to find myself in a way, you know, I used to feel exiled from society, abandoned by society, and now I feel rescued from society. And then I'm at the right place at the right time. So with that, I'll conclude this thought. And during my stay here in Southern Colorado, I'll continue to expand on these philosophies. It is April 6th, 2016. Signing off.